Luka Nation. This is going to be a different episode. This one we're recording early Monday morning. It'll be up for you guys in the evening, but always a different vibe when we record in the morning before Cage is like 7 sodas in. I'm on my first coffee. But we're very fortunate. We're joined by Rob. You guys know him as the Old Price, and that's the Old Price. I apologize. Huge Mahomes collector. Huge, beautiful collection. Steers modern. But we're going to talk about everything, modern, ultra modern, vintage, kind of how he thinks about portfolios, how he thinks about the market. It's someone that I've had the pleasure of getting to know for maybe 30 minutes offline, and you could tell he's got a good head on his shoulders. He knows this stuff both from like a sports perspective and from a financial perspective. And we always talk about how, the hobby's growing. There's, institutional money coming in, there's funds, all that stuff. It really is a culmination or a combination of investment banking, the financial system, and people who love sports, right? They love watching Luka and the Mavs go tie up with the Suns 2-2, or same with my Sixers. So I'm really excited for today's show. Rob, I appreciate you joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell people where we're catching you, right? You're in New York, but that's not home. What's going on right now? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm in New York. I had a couple meetings towards the end of last week and weekend. We got to catch the playoff basketball game as well, the Sixers and the Heat. So that was fun. Just been enjoying New York City, but we're on our way to Oregon later tonight to drop off a pretty big modern basketball card in the PWCC vault, and then a couple of days back to Florida where I just moved to, and then we'll hit the Fenway show in Boston next week. So a lot of card stuff the last few days, and then in the next few days ahead.
No camera guy following you guys. It's good content. You could have vlogged this whole trip.
No, I would have liked probably security guard this trip, but no cameraman.
Wow, man. So talk to us. I mean, you come from, in your origin story, you come from financial services. I worked for a very short period of time on Wall Street, Morgan Stanley, traditional financial services. How did you find yourself in cards full time, actually, now?
Yeah. I mean, this is one story I may have told a couple times before, but the kind of high level summary of my journey into cards was I did it when I was a kid. Used to buy the X-Men cards, basically the only cards that somehow haven't ever gone up in value, but I still have in good condition. When I was in high school, I would flip some football cards to go up a Patriots fan. So I never understood how at the time, for most of his career, Tom Brady's cards were significantly less than Peyton Manning's when Tom had all the hardware, but it is what it is. And then when I got into college, I started buying a little bit bigger cards. And then when I got my first job, even bigger. I think the worst trade I've had of all time was buying a Brady champ ticket for 4K back in 2013, and then selling it in 2014 for 5K, which is now a $1.5 million card, $2 million card. But in 2014, I moved to London. So I was working in banking in Charlotte, moved to London. Everyone tells you how expensive it is before you get to a city like that or in New York, and it never truly hits until you're there. So in 2014, literally right before Tom Brady ended his 10-year Super Bowl drought, where he had three rings for a 10-year span, the guy decides to win every other year for the next 7 years. So adding 4 more rings to his legacy, becoming the perpetual GOAT of all time in football. And the cards that I sold when I got to London have 1,000x or whatever. But we try to learn from our mistakes sometimes, not all of them, but some. So I got back into cards around 3 years ago, actually. So I moved from London to Dublin, Ireland. Had a little bit of extra money. Wasn't socializing as much. But you know how it is, I guess, Cage, if you're in a city like New York. I mean, it's that's just part of the day to day is going to places that most people can't afford to do often and still live good outside of that. But I think the first big card I got that really kind of helped me stay back into cards was I bought a Lamar Jackson like National Treasure booklet, but it was the one of one in the logo. And I bought it for $550. So, by no means was it a huge investment. And then he went on to win the MVP, and I flipped it for like 13 grand. And I was like, oh wow, like this is like a real thing. So I started reinvesting a lot of like anything I made, I reinvested. But around that time, so kind of right when Mahomes won the Super Bowl, I started buying right before he won the Super Bowl. I bought a big card, but shortly after, I saw a lot in those playoffs. The way he came back from deficits, had like the game against the Texans, they were down really big, and then in the Super Bowl they were down double digits, and he came back. I was like, wow, this is actually the guy. I think this is the guy. And I was never a fanboy for any player besides Tom Brady, but part of that was because he was my my quarterback of my team. Mahomes, there was no bias. It was like, Lamar just won the MVP, but Mahomes, I just watching him was like, this is really it. So the last couple of years, I've been acquiring some of his really big cards. Fortunately, my biggest one, I got before the market has done what it's done the last couple of years. And then about a year ago, I just had this portfolio, and I looked at it, and I'm like, wow, there's really a lot of like money here. And when when COVID ends and I have to go back into the office physically, like that's going to be a decision because it's not that I didn't have a good job before, but you look down at a piece of cardboard and it's like what you'll make in the next 10 or 20 years off one card, and then you have a couple of them. It's like, okay, well, I need to manage like what's happening to this.
What am I
card
doing now?
more than like
what am I doing working 40 hours a week when I could just
get canceled in my meeting planner 3 minutes before a meeting because I'm still like that unimportant in the grand scheme of like a company with 300,000 employees. So, and we went back to the office in October, and then I got a really unique opportunity with, I say business partner, but he's my boss now. In December to manage one of the biggest private portfolios that exist in the space. So, now I get to do cards full time. There is the buying and trading and selling component, but this portfolio has been selected, extremely well. I'm lucky that I get to spend time analyzing and having, being part of the decisions on like what the short, medium, and long term goals are for the portfolio. But just putting the structure around what our goals are, and taking a step back and seeing like what we really want to accomplish. I think that's like a really exciting part. And to a point, it's very similar to like what I'm had to do with my own portfolio, just on a much bigger scale. It's like, hey, we've done pretty well on some of these cards, or we think we picked the right cards, but someone needs to be like looking at these full time, and what do we think basketball is doing, what do we think football is doing, or Mahomes has gone up quite a bit since a couple years ago. Is he going to 10x or 20x again? And I think in the long run, someone like that can, because I think he's separated himself from some of the other younger guys. But then maybe there's some stuff where it's like, you could 5x in Joe Burrow last January alone. If you bought.
Can I ask you something? So, and this is something Cage and I talk about a lot, right? So a player like Giannis, Cage has a comment. He calls some players cardboard relevant, some players cardboard irrelevant, and some people sit in the middle. But look, you brought up how it didn't make sense to you where Brady had all the hardware, but he was selling cheaper than Manning.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it doesn't make sense to me that Giannis has the hardware, defensive player of the year, two-time MVP, champion. I think he's going to be champion again. But he doesn't sell for as much as some other guys with less hardware. Ja maybe being one of them. It's hard to compare cards for these guys, but are you a guy that's like a fundamentalist, like over time this stuff corrects itself, or are there other things that you look at? Because Giannis is a small market, Ja's a little more marketable, Luka's a bigger market. How do you analyze that? Because this is a debate discussion Cage and I have all the time.
No, I think that's really important. And I think actually the Brady comparison is perfect. He would, at the time, for most of his career, he was not cardboard relevant. And well, the time from his rookie year to like 2014, when I sold my cards for pennies on the dollar, to where they are now, because even when he got his fourth Super Bowl, then he was tied with Montana. So it wasn't even clear cut that he was going to be number one. Not that that even matters, because it's still really good to be the second best of all time. But once he got the fifth, and then the last few years, he's had some pretty big statistical numbers as well. And like the combination of all those things, it was just like the switch clicked for like the masses. Like before, it's like, look, this guy has 3 rings. I think he had three rings for several years before Manning even had one. And it's like, you don't even deserve to be able to compare Manning to Tom Brady at that time. Because the guy's
a lot of hate mail coming your way. Drake, DM this guy.
Guys,
well, listen,
but also
dive back into it. I remember doing fantasy football in like 05, 06. And, it was running backs. And I drafted Tom Brady as my quarterback, late in the draft. And people were making fun of me. And this was the guy had already won Super Bowls. And the reason why, and it's a great comparison, Giannis and Brady, to look at 10 years in, right? Because if you look at that 10-year snapshot, because that's exactly what Giannis is now, right? Because Brady was looked at as a system quarterback who, had rings, but his rings were on the back of a great defense, great coaching, great system. He was a guy who threw 20 touchdown passes in a year, 22 and 12. They were not counting on him to be the man. Whereas Manning was throwing, the ball all over the place, starting this whole, first time to have 3 receivers,
throwing it right to
1,000 yards. He's throwing it all over the place. Well, you understand. Manning was thought of as more of the quarterback, and Brady was thought of as more of like a field general who was a nice piece in a better team, in a better system. And it wasn't until, you could almost think of him as almost like a pretender for that first 10 years, right? People's overall thought on him was system QB, never really had to put the team on his back and do anything with it. Giannis, it's the same thing. He was a project for a little while. He came in, wasn't the athletic freak that he is now. Same with Brady. Brady was sweatpants and chubby. Now he's, he's my age, and, he doesn't look like me. He looks like you, Andrew, an Adonis, a stud, right? So, ladies, be careful around this guy. But point is,
a lot of hard work, Age.
One championship. One. And people think it's fake. People think it's a Fugazi championship, that he won it against a Nets team that didn't have their full pieces, and he just barely squeaked by, beat a Suns team with injuries and the whole 9 yards, almost like bubble championship. And we can, by the way, talk about this probably in a second, because I think that's a microcosm of the hobby. Sometimes cardboard relevance, cardboard irrelevance. Ja, there's promise there. It's all he could still win 10 championships and 5 MVPs, and he's excited and he's flashy and he's new and there's no blemish. But what's funny is, I think that if he does win one, the hobby, the current state that it's in now, I'm going to pivot our convo for a sec. I think people will find something wrong with Ja. I think all of a sudden it's going to be, okay, there'll be a couple people who had the Ja cards and are excited that they had it. But the 80% of the hobby that don't have Ja, they come out of the woodwork. And they're commenting negative, and they're out there, oh, yeah, it's great. You think those Ja cards are worth that? Ja's going to break his ankle next year. Ja's going to land on his head. Ja's horrible. Because that's
Are you speaking about yourself?
Yes, partly, but I'll do it before. I do it before he wins.
That's
right?
true. That is true.
I'm trying to protect people. No, but I'm talking about hobby negativity versus hobby positivity, right? I'm talking about, we're not cheering for those wins, right? Like, and let me say this. If Ja goes out and wins the championship this year, you have to know me, right? 700 episodes in almost. I will be the first one to go out there and say, congratulations to you guys who stuck by Ja, even when I was saying sell, right? Even when I was saying get rid of it because he's not going to have a long career, because look what he does. He breaks himself. Jordan Poole's going to rip his knee out of his leg. He's injury prone.
Code,
right? You break the code. You break the Hammurabi code, the knee for a knee. But the point is that I'll do that, but it seems to me, and Rob, maybe you could speak on this, because look, you're rubbing elbows with Ken Golden, you got all the fun stuff going on.
Well, I'm Ken's just rubbing elbows with him, if I could.
I'm a peon. Well, the elbows are rubbing. Who's rubbing whose? It just doesn't really matter. I rub elbows with myself. So, but the point is, I see this, and I think it's bad for the hobby. I think it's a little too biting. It's a little too negative, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So just to close out, Andrew, so I do think the fundamentals. So the fundamentals is how I like to buy stuff, and actually, that's probably where Nick and I have connected. Nick Dorella, who I'm working with now. on the most is that we think about things macro. We tend to pick the same, kind of players. But when you look at like the reason why though, it's really each of these events or accomplishments creates a new floor. So like when Giannis won, his first MVP and his second MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, each of those things kind of bump the floor up. And in isolation, maybe not as much as they should. But then you add 2 MVPs to a championship, and like regardless of like what you say about him versus Ja versus Luka versus Trae Young versus LaMelo, there's only one of those guys that's been voted the best player in the entire sport, and more than once, and has won a championship. And like that's usually my argument. Mahomes started off slow last year. The guy still had 4,800 yards or whatever it was. And you're getting guys like Josh Allen, who literally 2 years in a row got stuck on the final boss, which is Mahomes, and his cards are getting too close, pricing. And then you got Herbert, who's still very prolific first years. I really like Herbert. Guy didn't even make the playoffs. So like even if one of these guys, Burrow, Herbert, Allen, even Deshaun Watson, they come in, they win the MVP this year, they win the Super Bowl, then you're equal with Mahomes after this year. Mahomes and Giannis are a little bit similar in the sense that if they get that number 2 ring, then you can't be a hater anymore. You can't say it was fake champ. Like that's like you're talking about a 2 to 3x event, even from the 7-figure prices some of their cards are at now, just because it really pushes things over the edge. And you can only argue so much. Like, people, like I said, even when Brady had 3 rings, was on the cusp of 4, he was a system guy, and he was never going to Montana because Montana was 4-0, and now it's like, look, there's just too much data. The guy's best quarterback of all time.
Rob, think about it. If Giannis wins 5 rings, think of what the prices would be like then. It'd be insane. If he's the best player in the league on the best team with a dynasty, 5 rings, his cards would be worth Tim Duncan's prices. We can switch. I'm not actually asking you to answer that, but that's my cardboard relevant point.
No. It's interesting. But back to the point earlier, like, yes, I maybe it came up I was hating on Peyton Manning, but actually I think as far as players that aren't in the league anymore, the best buy in football is Peyton Manning, because now Brady's way too high compared to Peyton Manning. And like we don't have to put these guys in order. And I also think if somehow Aaron Rodgers won a second ring, his stuff would like 5x, because without putting them in order, besides Tom Brady's number 1, you got Brady, Montana, Aaron Rodgers, and Peyton Manning, and like that's the top 4 pretty much. I think in football quarterbacks, maybe we can move 1 or 2 guys in or out of there. But in like basketball, ask like 100 people who the top 10 are. Like it's going to be 100 different lists basically. The top 5 people will probably be fighting. In football, because it's just quarterbacks really is where the money goes. Like those 4 guys, those are clear-cut like investments, like clear-cut guys, fundamentals. All of them have a ring. MVPs, I think they all have MVPs as well. Rodgers has 3, Brady has a couple. So I think when I look at like,
it's funny how it changes. That's such a recency bias, though, right? Manning retired in the last 10 years. Brady's still playing. Rodgers is still playing, and Montana is great. Obviously, he was the GOAT before any of these guys. But I got to tell you, if we had this conversation, everybody's younger than me now, and people, I add in my old man little like, this guy can't hold it.
Relax.
He can't hold it. 45. He can't hold a candle to Julius Erving. He couldn't hold Julius Erving's jockstrap. Moses Malone would dunk all over this guy, right? No, but think about it for a second. If we had this conversation in the early 2000s, we would be talking about John Elway. We would be talking about Brett Favre with multiple championships and multiple MVPs. We'd be talking about different guys who don't even get mentioned now and whose cards are worth nothing.
Well, the interesting thing in football is because the way the rules have changed and stuff, the stats are so gaudy now compared to what they used to be. So like that there's that sexy factor.
Same thing in basketball, by the way, that whole 3-point thing and everybody shooting it on every possession.
But I mean, I think you can't go wrong with buying GOATs. The problem is buying, just buying guys that are retired across the board. There's no catalyst to bring the price up besides the overall market going up, or enough people sitting back and saying like, wow, this Peyton Manning makes 0 cents to sell at this price. The fundamentals of the active guys though, like in Aaron Rodgers, is like he could win his third MVP in a row in the Super Bowl, his cards were 5X. I do like that kind of stuff. So sorry, we went back to Andrew's question, but Cage, can you just refresh me on the question?
No, I mean, listen, it's funny, man, because I like this conversation. I'm glad we went down that path, right? Because look, if Rogers 5Xs and now Rogers cards are are worth X, Y, and Z, when you compare them to just his overall numbers, his franchise numbers, there are people out there who have watched the Packers for a half a century, and would say that Rogers is actually the third best quarterback that they've ever had in their team. And you're talking about his cards 5Xing. You're talking about Bart Starr, you're talking about Brett Favre, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, and it's amazing because there's a layer to this, there's a nuance, right? We talk about looking at the chart over time, right? I've hammered this thing home, about how rich people look at the chart and they say, over 5 days it's one of these crazy up and down, but over 5 years it's just one of these. But is there a point where these guys, there's diminishing returns? Or can those stud cards? Because I think this is actually the right answer. The Bart Stars, the Johnny Unitas as Andrew. That's Andrew's guy. Him and Johnny Unitas. They're close. The Brett Favre. If Rogers goes 5X, right? I think Bart Starr and Brett Favre, whatever their big card is, goes 1.5 or 2X. It doesn't go 5, because. Here's my take, man, and guys, listen, let's balance it out, right? Because that's the old price comes in with a great strategy, and it's buy your Mahomes, because if Mahomes wins another championship,
well, I believe that they're modern investors, and I think you're more of a vintage buyer.
Well,
by the way.
But here's why, and you could do both, right? So I do a little bit, but here's why I go with the vintage, right? Obviously, the upside is not there, right? I will never argue with you, right? Rodgers, you're right. There's a 5X potential. Giannis wins, huge potential. 4X, 5X, 10X, who the heck knows, especially, given the real rare cards. And part of the difference is that back then there are no rare cards. There were no one-of-one shields, and there was no flawless, there was no, logo mans and all the other craziness for these guys. And that, so we're not really comparing apples to oranges, but here's my take. Tell me what you think about this. We don't know whether it's going to be Mahomes winning another one and give you that 5X opportunity, or whether it's going to be Herbert who wins and his cards go 4X, or Burrow comes back and takes that next leap and doesn't lose to the final boss. I love that. I love a little arcade game, kind of like, or Game of Death, right? Bruce Lee, whichever way you're going with it. We don't know if it's going to be that, or if Deshaun Watson comes out of nowhere and wins, or Baker Mayfield, dies, or who knows. We know somebody is going to, though. We know one of those guys is going to. And when that happens, their market goes up. Yeah. And I compare my guy's market. Let's just use Rodgers, right? Rodgers' prices are nice, but they're not where they could be if he wins another championship. If he 5Xs, his numbers are still comparable to Brett Favre. Mm-hmm. So my way of doing this is, sure, I'm going to forego the 5X potential on Aaron Rodgers because I don't have to risk it. Right? I don't have to risk that maybe he doesn't win. Maybe Mahomes wins. Maybe any of these guys win. It could be any of them, right? Herbert, Russell Wilson, could be any of these guys. But no matter which one does win, their card's going to go up. And when you compare their card to my guy, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning,
use Montana. Montana was literally, you bought a Montana 10 because of that exact rationale. Remember the call?
Correct. Yeah. And I said, it's not going to go 5X, but maybe my Montana goes 2X when Burrow goes 5 or Mahomes goes 5. So is it boring? Sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can't. The thing is, like, and this is where the card market is very fun, is because we're not talking about the tech market in stocks where we're looking at Google and Apple and there's millions and millions of eyes like pumping out what the fundamentals are, what the real price should be. You're reading research reports on like a highly traded stock where everyone has an opinion, and like when you read all of them and put it together and do your own analysis, usually kind of everyone like gets there. Everyone's like, wow, like that's like a good investment. Or you could at least like give, if you're looking at research reports, there's 25 buy ratings, 2 holds and 1 sell. But like, and it doesn't mean that that's right either. But when we're looking at these cards, these aren't like the Apples and the Googles or the Facebooks. These are like stocks that no one's looking at, like penny sheet stuff, like thinly traded. No one really knows the price. And the easiest way though with these with cards, in my opinion, to get to at least get to a point where you can defend why you're getting that player. Like the market might not move the way you think it's going to do, regardless, even if the guy wins the Super Bowl, or even if people start comparing the Aaron Rodgers to the Brett Favres or the Bart Starrs, is buying players that have those accolades either cemented, like Jordan and all his accolades. Like that is actually like, oh, why is Jordan the best basketball player to buy? You say, okay, well, look at all the stuff he did. It's Air Jordan. It's like that's why. With the active players, it's like, why am I going to pay anywhere near Mahomes' pricing for Josh Allen, again, who's lost 2 years in a row in Arrowhead Stadium? Like the guy, we're not even talking about losing in the Super Bowl. The guy can't beat the boss. I mean, that's like, it is what it is. And you start looking, Giannis, same thing. Why am I going to pay, more for someone else when this guy already has 2 MVPs? Like 2 MVPs, most guys, even if they get 5 rings, won't get 2 MVPs in a sport. Because you got to be not only be on a really good team and then go, be clutch when it matters in the playoffs. You got to be the best player in the entire sport to be the MVP usually, or just a really good quarterback in the NFL.
You know what I like what you said? So the cardboard relevance for me is more than just the numbers and the stats, right? And I think this is where Mahomes and Giannis are a little bit different, right? I can look back at Giannis, and I'm going to give him credit for going to Chick-fil-A and ordering a 50-piece, right? Because that's my one story, right? That one fun thing. But, when I was telling people to invest in Tatis, I love the dance, I love the off-field stuff, I love that craziness. But just your own recanting of why you like Mahomes, right? Why you thought Mahomes, this is the guy. You didn't say it's because he's winning Super Bowls. You didn't say it's because he throws the ball for a lot of yards and for a lot of touchdown passes. You didn't talk about any of that stuff. You know what you said? You said, I watched the games and I saw this guy come from behind. I saw what he did in the Super Bowl when he was down double digits. I saw him do this. I saw him do that. I find that that's what's necessary for guys to take that next step in value. When you're telling their story, right, there's got to be that, oh, remember this? Remember when he did this? And hey, yeah, Josh Allen had that crazy game with him, but it was ultimately Mahomes that won it, right? The back and the forth, and we tell the stories. And maybe if Allen takes the next step, he can get into that conversation. But I don't have that much for Giannis. And maybe that changes this year. Maybe in the Eastern Conference Finals, he has a poster dunk against Jimmy Butler, or he makes a big block, or whatever it is. But I can spend the next 4 hours telling you Jordan stories because I was a Knicks fan, so I remember every one of them, right? So that's, I think, an important thing.
But it was, and I go back to the example from earlier. I probably look at Giannis more like a Tom Brady. Like, it was focus. These other players that were, putting up the crazy stats. It's weird because I'm not a huge basketball guy, so like I can't really conceptualize that the guy's win the MVP twice and like he's not putting up stats. I know Giannis is putting up stats, but he's kind of like Brady in the sense that until recently there was still someone else that was like the sexier player to watch. But I think that's actually can be helpful sometimes because like everyone else is on these other guys, and it's like, look, maybe the numbers don't lie, but fine, maybe we'll talk about a different player. But the biggest thing for me is the eye test. So it's like Lamar's winning the MVP in the season that I decide I'm going all in on Mahomes just because I watched the games and it didn't reflect, in maybe the overall stat sheet. And then it's like, wow, like look at the throws like this guy makes. It's like no one else can do these things. And if you just go by the numbers, or and people like to point to metrics. So like last year when Mahomes was slumping, someone DM'd me and said what his QBR rating was or something like that. If you look up right now, the highest QBR rating of all time, it's Mahomes. It'll probably be Aaron Rodgers that finished it. He's number 2, tied with Deshaun Watson because his sample size is a lot longer. But the best overall QBR rating to date is Mahomes. But you watch him throw 5,000 plus yards in a season. I mean, there's guys that it's like this guy's never ever going to throw 5,000 yards in a season, and now his prices are getting to Mahomes. I actually will tell you why we started buying a lot of Herbert was the game they played, the last game of the season where they should have gotten to the playoffs, but the coach did some weird stuff at the end of the game, and they ended up not tying. Herbert had like some huge, like five or six times, 3rd and like 15 or 4th and 15.
Yep.
And he was completing
2 straight drives. 2 straight drives.
That was against Cage's Raiders.
It was. I was like, it's over. It's
you
over.
predicted a tie on that game.
I did. I predicted a tie.
I was like, what are you talking about?
And really,
why would they tie?
I think I said this as early as 2 years ago, like when I really started kind of going all in on Mahomes, like as far as like not picking 10 different guys. I look at Mahomes as, even though they ended up losing the game, when they had the big lead against the Bengals this year. But again, I mean, that's still never on just one player. I
We
look at
DM'd
Mahomes,
about that game. That was one of the weirdest second halves I've ever seen in my life.
it was really weird. But I look at Mahomes as he's basically Peyton Manning statistics, and this is where he differs. Like, this is why I really like him. He is like the Peyton Manning of, he's gonna be top five in yards and touchdowns, or top 3 in touchdowns and yards every single season. He's gonna be top 3 in MVP voting, just like Peyton Manning was every year, or just like kind of like a LeBron is, like that longevity of being at the top, not winning the MVP every year, but being at the top every year. But he has Tom Brady's killer instinct. So he has all the gaudy statistics, but you put the guy in a hole, that's who you want. If it's not Tom Brady, I want Mahomes to get me out.
And he has Michael Jackson's brother.
Mahomes
So
to go
that's
because the guy can, I mean, against the Bills game, I mean, it was what did he have, 13 seconds to get the field goal at the end of the Bills game, and then you give Joe Burrow,
insane.
You give Joe Burrow the same situation basically in the Super Bowl, except he has a minute and a half or whatever and 3 timeouts, and he can't get you a field goal. I mean, this is what separates. I'm Joe Burrow's only in his second year. I'm just saying, like, guys like Mahomes, guys like Brady, to me, they're usually on the other side of those situations.
You got a seatbelt where you're sitting right now? You're not on the plane yet. Put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, I got.
I'm gonna. So put your seatbelt on. If I were holding Mahomes cards, and I'm not talking about holding millions of dollars worth of Mahomes cards like you and your partners and the whole. If I were holding Mahomes cards, I'd be very nervous right now, because this year will be a test. Now, those nerves, if you are a Mahomes believer, could be a huge payoff, because the narrative this year, I believe, by mid-season will either be Mahomes is that guy. There are those guys out there who make their receivers. For the longest time, Tom Brady was throwing to like the kids who couldn't make my high school football team and making them studs. Yep. Look at the receivers that he has out there, right? I mean, Devontae is a great receiver. The Raiders just paid him, a Brinks truck. That's a second-round draft pick. You know what I mean? Like, that was not a first-round pick, right? He's got Valdez, like whatever. I mean, Rodgers was one of those guys that took whoever it was and made them stud wide receivers. That's when you are the guy. Brady actually did that a couple times over his career. Towards the end, now he's got stud wide receivers, but he actually did that over time. And he with a system and his way of playing, he turned the Wes Welkers and the Julian Edelmans and these guys who were basically nobodies and wouldn't have, made NFL teams into, with the system and the way they played, into stud, all pro wide receivers. Mahomes coming in has had the benefit of playing with some of the most talented wide receiver, tight end company. Still has Kelsey, right? I mean, Kelsey's still there. It's great to have a security blanket, so you didn't lose everybody. But the Cheetah was a huge, huge weapon for him, right? I'm not saying Tua down Miami turns into Mahomes now, but it's going to be very different, the offense that he's running out there, than he has had previously. Now, it goes 2 ways, right? And this is why I'd be nervous, right? Because that's potential downside. If he gets past this year, and it could be a temporary thing, but he gets past this year by a couple of the young guns. I mean, Herbert, he might not be the quarterback Mahomes is, but Herbert has some weapons still to throw it to. Burrow,
just yesterday, you said, over 5 days, your investments like this, over 5 years, it's like this.
So I'm getting
what
there.
Is this? Oh,
I'm getting there. So in the short term, there may be some pain, right? There may be some pain with these guys. Mahomes, if he comes in and starts off slow, there may be some price correction on some of his cards, because the narrative might start coming out that this guy, maybe he's a system guy. Maybe, maybe the real benefit there was that he was throwing it to, the Cheetah.
Yeah.
And I was expecting to ask him, what do you think about that? And then have Rob say, well, I'm one of those guys that doesn't have to look at the chart all the time. Look at the long term.
It's funny because, I've kind of deadlocked myself into the position in the card community that, if I'm to sell Mahomes, it looks like I'm changing my mind or getting nervous. It's like, no.
Right.
I was able to quit my day job to do cards full time, and the portfolio that I've amassed is like 99% in one player. So I think any person with half a brain would start to look to diversify a bit, or at least take some off the table. Doesn't mean I don't believe in Mahomes or the card market in general. There was a really big dip at the beginning of last season, and it was actually like the perfect storm. So what happened was, at the National, there was a $4.3 million National Treasure Shield. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, this might be we need to like monetize off this," because there was a lot of people that thought that card might have only been half of what it sold for. So everyone scrambled to get their like big high-end Mahomes cards that had been buried for a year, 2 years, to be like, okay, this is like the event. Everyone should realize like that this has changed the market. Well, by the time some of those cards got pumped through the big auction house system, Mahomes was slumping. So there were some really, really low, really, really big card sales in September, October, just because of some short-term recency bias. So like we bought, I don't know, probably $1 million of Mahomes cards. In
Just
the
showing you guys on the screen if
yeah,
you've never seen
yeah,
it.
in the
Hold it up
in the
real quick for
actual
you guys.
bottom, I think we bought. So we bought. He has. So that's the true National Treasure Shield. He has like it's called a rookie premier signature. Looks similar-ish shield. We bought the shield for 10% of that when Mahomes was slumping. So, there's always the event, the ebbs and flows of any market. Nothing goes in a straight line forever, as you've alluded to. I think I didn't think we would see that kind of downturn in Mahomes high end, and we did in a short period, and it bounced back because he still got close. He still got to the AFC Championship game, which is where he's got every single year. He's been in the league as a starter. But there is such thing as kind of timing the market, and especially on these like really, really big cards, you might be able to take some money off the table. And at some point in Mahomes' career, whether it's this year, whether it's week 1, the end of the season, or even in 2 years, he's going to slump because they all do. And maybe that's the buying opportunity, because this market is imperfect. It's not efficient, as I was alluding to earlier. The guy could win the Super Bowl next year, and you could 10x because you buy a card in October at the bottom because he starts off slow. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. I think part of the holdback to Mahomes recently has been all these young new quarterbacks, all these new names. There used to only be a couple guys, and we were unfairly comparing Mahomes to Tom Brady even this time last year because there was no one else to compare him to. It's like, so we don't compare Luka Doncic to Michael Jordan. We just compare him to the other good guys that are in the league, especially the younger guys in the league. Now we're doing that with
For
Mahomes.
a long time, Luka's compared to Trey. I think that can.
But I actually like this now. I like that we're comparing Mahomes to Herbert and Allen because, like I said, right now, comparing Mahomes to Herbert hasn't made the playoffs. Comparing Mahomes to Allen, Mahomes is 2-0 against Allen in the playoffs. Neither of those other guys have hardware of any kind. I don't think Josh Allen will ever get an MVP, but that's beside the point. As these guys' cards are getting to the $200,000, $300,000 range, $1 million range, if Mahomes separates this year, to your point, Cage, that's it. If he doesn't, maybe he flatlines or goes down, or basically the cards become a little bit illiquid. I'm looking at Mahomes. Mahomes is the only player that I've had myself that I truly view as an investment. Like I'm fine to pay market price for his national treasures if I can, if I'm have the liquidity at the time, and literally just hold them in 3 to 5 years. Like that card, I think has a trajectory of like a LeBron exquisite out of 99, like in 10 years, if he does what he's supposed to do. Actually, as long as he wins a couple more, I think he's on really good pace for his market to kind of explode. But as the market ebbs and flows, if he starts off slow this year, could his cards go down? Certainly. If he wins a Super Bowl this year, you probably never get a Mahomes card again. I mean, that's how it's crazy to say that, those kind of blanket statements. But, two rings, 5 years in, which is what he could be at the end of this year. That's why I've been really reluctant to sell even my biggest cards, because, I mean, I could be looking at a 3x event on really, really big numbers if the guy just wins the Super Bowl in 9 months. I mean, it's like, where else am I going to put my money? If it's not in cards.
So let me ask you. We talked a lot about Mahomes, Luka. So the card that Rob has taken to PWCC, you guys might have seen this deal go down. So Shine sold the Luka logo man incredible card to, I mean, there's the photo on Instagram, so I'm not breaking any news, Mr. Nick Fiorella, right? Luka hasn't accomplished any of the things that we've just talked about for, 30 minutes. What's the logic there? What's the thought process there? And we have like a little group chat with all the people, our content team, Alex, Manny, MBT, Cage, myself, Shane, and we always just talk basketball. And I'm like, Luka's such an enigma, man. I can't figure the kid out. What was the logic with that purchase? 4.6 mil for Luka's best card.
So that purchase predated me, but I think, and like I said, myself, I'm not the biggest, macro basketball, investor or collector out there, but I think the logic behind Luka just in general, and I kind of agree with it, is that one, he's super young. He had that, he's even more advanced at a young age because he played in the Euro League, has a championship here. Now I know we don't count that. He needs to get NBA championships, but he definitely, from what I understand, has that X factor, that excitement factor. Like he could just take over a game. That's like he's only missing those other points. Like, and it's clear. It's basically clear that he is like the most exciting young guy, and it's I think implied that he's going to get the MVPs and he's going to get the championships. Now, because we're so early in his career, it's fine to kind of wait on those things. But if we get to the 5-year mark from now or 10-year mark from now, and it's still all hypothetical, that's not a good place. But I mean, that's pretty much where Mahomes is as well. He's just one MVP and one championship up. But like, if we look at Mahomes in 5 years and he still only has one ring and one MVP, his market's down, period. And in 10 years, it's really down. I think it's the same with Luka. And the interesting thing about basketball, I know Giannis didn't do it this way, but they could, 2 years, he's like, I'm not doing, I'm going to just team up with Trey or one of these guys. He's like, you can do that. And the guy rattles off 8 rings in a row. And I think those kind of hypothetical things are still, baked in. People think Dallas is going to figure it out. Mark Cuban's a smart guy.
Yeah.
But the exciting him and how I think his perception is so much more exciting than like the clear-cut one where you ask a ton of different people who's most exciting. I think that's keeping his market up. And outside of the, like I said, maybe the MVP and the championship to date, he has all the other like statistics to back it up. That's why I struggle with a guy like a Josh Allen, just to go back to football, which I can understand a bit more.
You hate Josh Allen. I think it has something to do with your Patriots fandom.
But he's not. You can't say what I just said. Mahomes is Luka Doncic, and that's a comparison.
But Luka's number one.
Josh Allen ain't Luka because those guys take over games. Like those guys, like even and those guys, like we were walking in New York literally a couple of days ago, and Jack Nick's son was wearing a Mahomes, and this guy out of nowhere, like this isn't. Wearing a Patriots jersey, I'd understand if someone said something. Someone was like, "Oh, Mahomes jersey." The only other person that's like that in football is a Brady jersey. For years, I'd be in Philadelphia or San Diego, and you're wearing a Mahomes jersey. It's not the rival. We're not even in the same division or conference. And they're like, "Oh, a Brady jersey." That's that guy.
When he's comparing Luka to Mahomes, it's not the hardware or anything like that. What he's saying is the fan base. What he's saying is the, just the what comes to people's mind with it. It's almost like a net. It's almost like a net for values, because we have it in our own group chat, man. People who will defend Luka, to the end of time, right? And it doesn't matter that he hasn't won a championship. People just they love him. He's got a fan base. Same thing with Mahomes, man. Mahomes has this, the support. And the people who love Mahomes, they will take their shots at Josh Allen. And by the way, I happen to agree with you. I think Josh Allen's going to be Ben Roethlisberger. I think he does win one, though. But he's never going to be relevant.
I just don't like guys that run. I mean, you watch those two in a game. Outside of the last quarter of the last game they played in, Mahomes just looks like they're two different players, in my opinion. And it's crazy.
Cage was cashing on the Whatnot app with over Josh Allen rushing yards. So if you guys want some money, enjoy.
Every week. I'll just go Josh Allen over every week. They haven't figured this out yet that he's going to run, and the coaches are running him. And I love your point about Luka could win a championship. I read an article this morning about how the super team building that if Dallas doesn't win now, they're bringing in Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. So guaranteed championships.
I'm out.
I mean, if they win this year, though, it's like that'd be insane. But you'll find out I'm not a Josh Allen hater. So here's the biggest thing I think about cards. It's not the player or even the card itself. The biggest thing is entry point. You can make money off any. I buy stuff all the time. I don't even like the player, but the price is right, and I'll buy it. So if you scroll to the bottom of my page, first you'll see where I was 2 years ago as far as what I was able to buy. But I was buying Josh Allen base prisms for $1, like literally $1 a card, because they would just go on eBay and no one want like $3 shipping, and like those are $100-something cards now. And I bought his National Treasures jersey number 17/25 when he was literally like a nobody for $900 because I saw that the Lamar Jackson just did $40K. That's like a probably $100,000 card now. So it's not that I don't like Josh Allen. I don't like Josh Allen when I'm paying close to Mahomes pricing. That's what I don't like. But I kind of don't like anyone when I am, to be honest.
I just DM'd the account on Instagram. The price is right to see if I can buy the handle. I'm gonna be so that's the old price. That's the new price, and then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna have the prices right.
We got that's the price too. That's the joint account, but we don't really post on it.
You do nice.
That's right. Yeah. No, so I mean it's fun. I think that there's a lot of subjectivity in cards, especially around the guys like Luka, Mahomes, where there's a ton of the trajectory of the card is like what they're supposed to do. But in the long run, when the dust settles, all these guys, Luka, Mahomes, but just in general, that's why I like buying guys with a floor. Like I would rather buy actually when Giannis won last year, right? That was last year, right? This shows you how much I know about basketball. That's when. Now you don't like when he won last year, then you don't sell Giannis cards. You don't get that 10% or 20% spike just because he won. Now he has a new floor. No one will ever be able to say that Giannis or Mahomes aren't world champions. That's when I pumped all the money into Mahomes after the Super Bowl. I'm like, no matter what, the guy's gonna no matter
Which is
what.
funny.
I agree with you,
Dip
man.
after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah,
because everybody comes out. The supply comes out. The people who were waiting for that bump, all of a sudden there's more.
And that was a weird one because it was COVID too. It was like he won in February and then March was COVID. And the only reason
you're right about the floors, man. You're right.
It really changes things. So like no matter what, like you might be able, if Mahomes finishes with one Super Bowl all time, you'll say, wow, what could have been? But you'll never say he was. There's a different level. But even having one ring or one championship, you're not like an all-time choke.
I mean, it's why I'm so happy I spent all my money on Tim Duncan cards. I mean, because the floor is set. But listen, let's not go that way for a second. Let me ask you a question because you made a point, and I know what people think while they're listening. I know what people are listening to this episode and they say, "Cage, don't let him get away with that. Don't let him go." So, and it's not you didn't say anything wrong, but I got just one follow up, right? Mm-hmm. You were in this at a different time. It's a very different age here, 2022 than 2018. Right. And, a lot more negativity, a lot more people who have actually taken a beating. And you talk about scroll down, you made a statement, which was your entry point matters, right? You don't have to just buy the top guys. It's when you buy at the right price. Then you went and talked about how you were able to buy Josh Allen National Treasures for $500, jersey number, under $1,000, you name it, the whole deal. And I know the people listening to this will say, yeah, but I can't do that now. National Treasures football boxes are $5,000. Zach Wilson's RPAs are thousands of dollars, not Josh Allen. The market has changed. That's the old price for Josh Allen, to use your name, right? So the people who are listening, what they would want to know is, do you still see an opportunity now like you were seeing there? How do you identify those now? Are we just looking at quarterbacks in football? Are there already quarterbacks out there that in this year's National Treasure or is the entry point trying to find somebody like a Deshaun Watson whose prices are low? So let's talk about that a little bit because I know that's the value that somebody like you who's real knee-deep in football stuff and knows the pricing and knows the stuff and can find a way to identify the right entry price. What do you tell those people listening? Because it's not buy Josh Allen now because you can't. It's not $500 anymore.
Yeah, well, and I guess you have to be able to adapt. Wherever the market is, right? So there's and again, I will make sure I provide more context than just Mahomes. But one of the funnier things with Mahomes is we saw really going into last season was a lot of people loaded up on Herbert, and there was a much bigger gap between Mahomes and Herbert. And Herbert started off fast, and Mahomes started off slow, and everyone was like, so like the market was pumping the Herbert because now like they were able to get that big rip to close the gap on Mahomes, and like fine, maybe that's justified, maybe that's not, but there's this big stigma with I would probably say Luka and Mahomes are similar. Like if you don't have Luka now and you don't have Mahomes, people get in their heads like it's set and programmed. They can't get it out. I missed the boat on Luka. I missed the boat on Mahomes. And it's like, okay, yeah, can you buy their million dollar cards as a normal person? Probably not. Neither can I still. But let's not overcomplicate it. Like, you know, why are you buying Zach Wilson for 10 grand? Just buy a lesser card of Mahomes for 10 grand, or buy a lesser card of, you know, or a better card of a lesser card of Burrow for 10 grand or something like that. Like, you know, it's like people think they missed the boat on Burrow. Like they want the really, really new ones. And it's like, well, let's look at everything holistically and like, what are the different options? Like you don't have to chase the newest stuff. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are a lot bigger, but I think the common theme of people that I've met, whether I started 2 years ago or 2 days ago, and including myself, is you know, starting off with whatever you can start with, doesn't matter how much money that is, sell and reinvest. I mean, that's what growth companies do, right? You know, we don't want to get one card and just pay a quarterly dividend. Like every card I bought, really until very recently, I put all the money back into cards. And that's how you grow. And like, yeah, I mean, a card might be worth 10 grand, but someone puts it up on eBay for $1,000, buy it now. So, you know, you just have to be looking as well and doing the research, putting the time in. So it doesn't mean, you know, and also if a player's performing, it doesn't mean that you missed the boat. You know, maybe you wait for a dip because the timing's not right. Maybe you look and you're like, man, I don't like any of these prices. Let's wait 3 months and see what happens. I mean, you don't have to force it or just, you know, have no money to play with if an opportunity presents itself by being fully invested either.
So we had Lior from Alt on, and he talked about how you know, the 5, 6, the main players of the main cards of the player you want are the ones that actually have the most alpha. So like instead of buying a Zach Wilson, you know, for 10K, for example, buy a lower end Luka or Mahomes in this case. But here's the issue with how the market has gone, because there's been so much, and this is hypothesis, because there's been so much money that came into the space, especially on the high end. The high end cards have hit new records, but we've actually seen like silvers, which used to be like what the common man like myself would buy. People have got burned, right? Like you look at the Luka Silver Prism, his PSA 10 was as high as 10K. It was right around 8,000. That's a $2,000 card, right? Even though his National Treasures, yeah, it was a 1010. That sold for 700. Same with Mahomes. Mahomes had that $4.3 million shield sale, but his Prism PSA 10 has come down. What do retail guys do?
I still think the biggest fundamental, as far as if you've picked your player and you picked your market and you have your budget, you just buy the rarest card you can. So like if you have a target set like Prism, you know, and this is one where I think there's a lot of money to be made long term. You know, do you buy a PSA 10 silver where there's, you know, a significant amount of them that exist in the pop report, and then if you go beyond whatever a PSA 10 or PSA 9, there's just a ton of them in circulation, period. I would rather have like, you know, a card number to 25 that's graded a 7, or a card number to 50 that's graded a 7 for the same price. And you'd be surprised, sometimes you get a card that's literally stamped to 50 or to 25 in Prism, for example, for cheaper than a PSA 10 silver, which can be thousands of. So, you know, I think applying like that kind of logic, I'll give you an example. There was a National Treasures out of 5 Mahomes. So the Shield was an 8.5, not that grade matters on the card that rare, but it sold for 4.3 million last July. This January, we had to kind of rush the purchase because if Mahomes would have won the Super Bowl, that the price we paid would have definitely been the old price and we wouldn't have got it. But he's out of 5, and it was a BGS 8, so it's 0.5 graded, you know, off from the 1 of 1. What do you think that like we were able to get that for with a good patch? So the 1 of 1 was 4.3 as an 8.5. We got the 8, same card out of 5. What do you think we got? That
450. 450,000.
350, which was super low. And to give you context,
I'm good
I
at this.
guarantee a PSA 10 of that card out of 99 would have sold for minimum 2, but probably close to 2 to 3x the out of 5. And this is happening at the most sophisticated, highest dollar number, biggest products. Like, this isn't some small brand. We're talking about national treasures where we have the data on how much the shield went for. We got, one of the very best variations for significantly less than what we valued at, because it wasn't a PSA 10 or a BGS 9.5. That kind of stuff, you can do that at any pocket of the market. You could do it at the bottom, the middle, the top. And I think in the long run, those things correct themselves, because someone's like, wait, this PSA 10 Mahomes out of 99 is pop 8. Well, this card in my hand, there's only 5 that exist. It doesn't matter what, it's just simple math. And you can do that all across the board. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what's helped me kind of level up in my own portfolio. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've had in common with Nick, is we think the same way on that stuff as well. I mean, Nick is he's same thing, and Jack as well. I mean, we all buy the rare cards. Doesn't really matter what the grade is. Way more so than we'll pay for a holder. Because I think close.
If we could shift gears, I'm curious, Fanatics, any thoughts from your guys' crew? I know it's all speculation, but how that will affect, I mean, it probably won't affect card prices at all, up or down, but any thoughts on Fanatics coming into the market, how that's going to affect, the Panini cards you're holding? Any thoughts?
I mean, I think the main thing that the big thing I see with what they're doing is, whether it's Fanatics or someone else, but it happens to be Fanatics in this case, is they're bringing big money into the market. They're bringing the people that are coming in, the Rubens of the world, Josh Luber, these are guys that have created companies, ran companies, have very strong business acumen behind them. And this industry is going to probably run regardless of if a company like that came in. But having that structure around it, there's a lot of stuff in the card space that are still very inefficient, or there's people that have collected for a long time and their cards weren't really worth much a couple years ago. Now they're paper millionaires. I mean, the people that are coming in now, they're going to be pumping money into this growing asset class, and they're going to be bringing their friends in. And I think that's the stuff you don't need to have any kind of inside track into what Fanatics plans are. That's the stuff that's very exciting. This is going to be an asset class.
I can't wait till their friends come in. I'm going to be really mean to them on Instagram. Not a collector.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you do not pass go. You do not collect $200.
I mean, the not a collector one kills me. I mean, I think I've met some really good collectors, and I mean, I said it was hard for me to sell my Brady's because back in 2014, because I love Tom Brady, and I think now I'm desensitized to everything. Mahomes is my childhood hero quarterback, so when I sell, me not selling those cards now is I believe in them as an investment, but there's no attachment. But it doesn't mean I like cards. I buy 101 Patriot defensive players, so I buy a Ty Law National Treasures 101 auto for $100, and I know I'm never going to sell that. And big number 75 and so Wolfbrook, that kind of stuff. But people that come in and get just mad that people are buying and selling cards, I don't really understand that. And it's sometimes I see these people, they're like, oh yeah, I'm a collector. It's well, if you're a collector, why do you have 200 Luka PSA 10 base cards? You only need one. But no, I mean, I think there's going to be some growing pains still, between all of it. But, I don't truly understand, where people talk about, oh, the cards have gotten so expensive, I can't collect anymore. It's well, some of those cards you were holding, and I see a yacht when I'm down in Miami, I want to buy that too, but it's just not in the cards, no pun intended.
Do you guys mess around with vintage at all?
Not too much. Nick has a couple. He's got a big Clemente PSA 9 with the NBA gold sticker on it as well. And then I think that's as far as it goes. I think Nick's expanded a bit into memorabilia. So he bought those Jordan's first pair of game worn shoes that are dual signed.
That's sick.
This is kind of cool, but we've mainly been stuck in kind of the ultra modern space. We think vintage football has some legs, based on, it hasn't gone up nearly as much as vintage baseball as the market's moved. But again, as far as like catalyst in the short run, we could be pumping money into vintage football and it 10x's tomorrow, or it could be in 10 years. We don't really know. So I think I alluded to when we were speaking earlier, our kind of main strategy is getting rebalancing, getting a bit focused on like what our long-term plan is, but that's definitely an area that we're going to be looking at. Vintage across the board, but vintage football, I think specifically.
You could consider something vintage that I don't. I mean, I collected in the '80s. People think that's vintage, right? People think a Joe Montana rookie is vintage, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think it's just before that in football. But yeah, no, I agree. It's getting close. I mean, you look at the card; it looks like a vintage card. What is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 40 years old, 40 plus years old, right?
Is it 1981?
Yeah.
Yep. No, I think So I bought a BGS 10 1984 tops John Elway the other day.
Nice card.
But it was on. It fell through the cracks in an auction. And, I think that's a 6-figure card. We won it for like 10 grand. I'm just going to stick it up on fixed price somewhere and see what comes in. But that's a massive card. It's Pop 12 from 1984. I mean, but again, it's like, I don't know what's going to, outside of me thinking it's undervalued, I don't know what's going to cause anyone to buy that right now. I think in the long run, yes, like the fact that someone will pay more for a Zach Wilson RPA right out of the gate than John Elway's, best card where there's only 12 of them. I mean, that's just the market we're in, I guess.
Yeah.
NFTs are getting pummeled right now. I mean, if you go on Twitter, you could have last Darren Ravel. He's like, this was bought for X and now it's sold for this. Hee hee ha ha.
I sent that to him.
Did you send it to
I
Darren?
tweeted at him. Yeah, about 10 hours before he posted. Like, Darren, check this one out. It'll make a great post. And he posted it.
Well, so I mean, Rob, you talked about entry point, right? You don't have to love the player or the card. Entry point. So let's talk about CryptoPunks for a second. You have an asset that's like the main NFT, so to speak, and now it's trading at like a 10th of all-time highs. So I'm curious, what do you guys make of the NFT space? And then we'll talk a little bit about digital collectibles. I actually think those are two different things, right? You have Panini digital cards, and then you have the whole NFT space. Curious your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I mean, I still consider myself, I'm 35. I feel like an old person. I like physically looking at cards. I don't really like doing anything on the computer, but I understand NFTs, at least conceptually. My kind of high level summary on them, is because there's no driver, at least today, the way they're structured is you're not buying an NFT that's like backed by like a event in the real world. Like, for example, if you bought a Mahomes NFT and he won the Super Bowl and then you got something from that would be backed by something in the real world. The CryptoPunks, I kind of look at CryptoPunks as like Pokemon cards, right? So just the market has decided, hey, like these are the ones. These are the best ones within. So like Charizard trades more than the other ones within the CryptoPunk space. Ones with certain features trade for more. But it's just like the market has decided that these two things are worth money, and it's about rarity, it's about scarcity. Those are things that I really like, but I don't have any Pokemon cards either because I like the rarity and scarcity and coupling that with something in the real world. So buying the best card from the best brand, the one of one of a player that if he wins the Super Bowl, I make money. So I don't really do anything with NFTs yet myself. Now I know other people have different views, and I'm not saying that I don't like them or I do like them. I'm just saying what I understand. I've always had money in cards because I've always, even the stock market, like you could be completely right about Airbnb 2 years ago, buy it in February, and then COVID happens in March and the world shuts down. So like I like to buy things that I think that I understand, and that's usually centered around a player because it's pretty clear cut. The guy wins the Super Bowl, the guy wins the MVP. As long as you didn't get flamed on the front end and you purchased way too high off the bat, you're gonna do well. And like I don't know in the long run what a PSA 10 Charizard's gonna do. Just like I don't know what a CryptoPunk's gonna do. It does look like the market has decided that those two different things are important in their respective space and associated some type of value to each of those things.
Any thoughts? Any final questions? Any final words, Cage? Before we're at right over
No,
an hour. I love these conversations, man.
I like the
I learned quite a
comparison.
bit.
I like the comparison. No, I mean, listen, I guess my last question for taking it home, and we kind of touched on this already, is, I mean, you got that's the old price, that's the new price. You got this is there. Where you talk about entry points, we don't have to talk about negativity, positivity in the hobby, and all that other fun stuff, which is where I was trying to go before. But more, I think that negativity and positivity comes with the different cycles that we're in, right? And it's harder now. If you came in a couple years ago, it didn't make a difference. Josh Allen wasn't anything that anyone was talking about, but you can go buy it for $1. I mean, I was buying, you know, um, Luka cards for $5, $10, $15 for his base rookie. You know what I mean? Trey cards for a couple bucks each and grading 50 or 100 of them at a time. Mbappe, you name it, like all these things. It was easier to do. I think a lot of people listening came in the last couple of years and they weren't able to ride that wave up and have that money and turn the stuff around kind of the way you have. But you are not, I think this is important, right? You're not cashing out of your cards now. You're not selling all of your cards and going and buying comics. You're not selling all of your cards and going and buying, gold or Bitcoin. You're not, you and your crew, you're not selling your cards and saying, well, there's 10x somewhere else. I'm going to go invest in whatever it may be, right? You're here. You still see opportunity in the market. This is millions of dollars. That's not just, okay, we had the run up, we made our money, we're leaving. I guess what I would ask is, do you still see that opportunity for people? What do you say to the folks with like the low budget, the low stuff? Like, it's gonna turn, more money's coming in, fanatics. Like, what is it when you sit down with your crew and have those, that high level talk of like, have we had the run? Are we now gonna have a 5-year flat period? Should we be moving this somewhere else? And you decide to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to now that we're starting to look at it more as like a business or like a real portfolio, in Nick's case, for example, he has a lot of exposure to like these younger guys that we really want to be in, but maybe those cards have run up so much that in the grand scheme of the overall portfolio, we need to take some off the table. But you do that in any portfolio, stocks, bonds, that's just how things work. I think it's, start where you're comfortable with. I think one of the bigger things you can have in your decision-making process is being able to kind of look through whatever it is like you want to do your research, but then you can ask people for opinions and stuff, fine, but don't let anyone change your opinion. I think that's been the biggest thing. I mean, I had people tell me 2 years ago, right after I got the Mahomes Black Prism, that I should sell it, and at the time I traded for most of the acquisition was me trading things into the card. So I didn't really lay a lot of cash out, which means I didn't have a lot of cash at the time. And a month or two in, I could have doubled my money and got all cash out. And that would have put me on such a different planet as far as, access to money and like just my normal financial position, not even in sports card, just in life. But I thought about it. I said, like this, I don't really know what this card is, but like, I'll sell my other stuff. And I'm still kind of in the same place. Like I haven't sold that card yet because I think I've built up a good portfolio underneath it. I'd rather sell those cards first. At some point, will someone make me an offer and I might have to sell it? Sure. But, I think leveling up, reinvesting, whatever you want to call it, having some principles. So, maybe you stick to certain brands because those brands should be more insulated and more people understand them. But within those brands, like buying a Prism Luka, that doesn't mean anything. It's like, which one are you buying? Are you paying a premium because it's a PSA 10? Me, I don't care about PSA 10s. If I'm going to pay money for a holder, I want a BGS 10. And that's how I did it like way back when. I mean, when the pop is like 10 or 15. PSA 10 pop 1,000, I don't even want that card, regardless of what it is, to be honest.
Do you get caught up in the current narratives, right? Because 2020, PSA's king, 2021, SGC's king, 2022, nobody's king, 2023, GMA's king. You don't know how it's going to.
You can get caught up in that where you can see it as opportunity. Like if you see a BGS 10 for anywhere near a PSA 10 price, and you think the PSA 10 is not overpriced, or overvalued or wherever it's trading, the BGS 10 is a screaming buy. BGS 10 should be a significant number higher than a PSA 10. And that, like, I've That's been my opinion the whole time I've done cards. And there's a lot of people that would get on and say, no, that's not the case. And I think in the like having those different things, like that's where there's opportunity when there's, and can I be wrong? Of course, BGS, that could never come back. I think it will though. And the thing is, people sometimes too, they like to apply the same logic across the board. Like everything is like so rule based. Like, I mean, you could dig through DMs. Like I'm never saying anything definitively. Like people are like, oh, like this is this. Like I have my opinions about like Josh Allen versus Mahomes and stuff, but do I know where anyone's prices are next year? No, but people will come out and say that like, no, PSA 10, like that's definitely the grading company. Like PSA is definitely the grading company. Like, oh, this BGS stuff, like BGS 10s are nothing. Okay, but like, tell me this: how much do you think the Michael Jordan BGS 10 would be versus a PSA 10? Is it the same price? Is it 2x? No. It's a mega number, mega multiplier. We saw this with the Joe Montana years ago when the market was nothing. I think a Joe Montana BGS 10 sold for 6 figures. So let that kind of stuff sink in. And then a lot of times, when you get the overall, kind of market speaking, it's like who's actually doing the speaking though? It's like, wow, like 10 different people said that this is the rule. Well, like then you look at it's not all opinions are created equal. It's like, well, what are the credentials that person has? So like at the end of the day, you need to take a step back and like make your own, even my opinions are my opinions. It's certainly nothing I'm saying is definitive, but bringing all that together, I think is where you'll be able to kind of, navigate the market, because it isn't the price is the price, like a share of Apple. No one has control over the price of a share of stock. In cards, you buy something, it's really rare. There's no comps. You start to create the story. A card that's numbered way more sells for more than the card that you just got, and you springboard off that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity regardless of what your starting point is.
Start to tell the story. That's what we try to do here. I don't know whether or not I love that that's how we're going to create value on cards. Kabooms are great because people are telling stories about them, but I understand what you're saying.
Dude, stocks work like that too, right? Tesla's valuable partially because of how Elon was able to promote it, talk about it, build a narrative around it. Sure, be evangelical about the mission that they have of clean energy and all that in it.
It works both ways. I mean, people pump up the lesser numbered cards, right? I mean, you see National Treasures out of 99 outsell out of 25s or out of 50s all the time. It's just, So I mean, I get it. I love where we went. We'll
have Rob on for a round 2 for sure, because
beautiful.
I mean, this could be like a 2-3 hour episode in a lot of ways. I think the people that are going to listen to this episode are going to take a lot out of it, man. We started with Mahomes and kind of going player specific, and we opened it up, talked a little bit about markets. So there's a lot here, and any final words, Rob, anywhere people could follow you, anywhere they could support what you guys are doing, anything like that?
No, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I always like, talking through cards, talk about them way too much in general, but it's always nice to do it, in a structured form. I appreciate you guys leading the conversation as well. So thanks there. And no, I mean, I think, happy to speak to anyone, if anyone, Instagram's that's the old price. And then, yeah, I mean, hopefully I catch you guys at, National, if not before then. And, looking forward to staying in touch.
You have the Luka logo, man, right there by your side?
I do. Do you want to show it?
For the people who haven't seen it, it would be cool.
All right. So this is not my card, full disclosure. But yeah, I'm blessed with his presence today. Hopefully they can, finish the series. But yeah, I mean, that's one where it's like I would have never envisioned being able to hold something like that, even a few months ago. So I do very much appreciate certain cards. I'll say that.
I know it's a 1-of-1, but that got graded exceptionally well. That's if you guys know that card, that's a very difficult grade, and I think it's BGS 9 when it was bought raw. That's a card right there. I mean, the fact that it was in that condition. I know we say 1-of-1's condition doesn't matter. I don't think it matters up to a certain point, but I think it is that cherry on top to know not only is it a 1 of 1, but this is a perfect, basically condition 1 of 1, which is more than you could say. Like, I'm not going to beat up on Giannis, but there's a whole blowout for him with his 1 of 1, right? Because there's a stain on the back, and say what you want, that has an effect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it does.
It's in a perfect world, everything would be a BGS 10 black label, right? I mean, across the board, whatever the card is.
It'll be in Ian's Authentication Network 10.
I'm very encouraged by the Mahomes sale that happened last year. Somebody spent $4.3 million on a card graded in 8.5, which many people would not buy if the card was out of 99. So, yes, I mean, obviously it's the cherry on top if a 1-of-1 is a PSA 10 or something like that. But I personally don't think it has any effect. And, I would actually prefer to buy that kind of card in a lower grade, because that might keep a few people, out of the bidding initially. And then you basically explain, you tell the story afterwards. Well, it's the only one. I think even the Giannis, if my memory serves me correctly, someone bought it and had noticed the stain and they returned it and got it back and made, that was the whole thing. And meanwhile, there was Honus Wagner that sold like 75% of it was missing a month ago, and it did 7 figures. So it shows you that in certain cards, I don't think grade really matters as much as the common cards. I mean, that's the thing. Like the base cards, the grade is the separator. The grade is the scarcity. So pop 800 Mahomes PSA 10 base. There's thousands of them, but there's 800 in that grade. But the 1-of-1 Black Prism is just the 1-of-1. The scarcity is the scarcity, and that's the kind of cards I go after, anyways.
Love you, Luka Nation. You're the man, Rob Cage. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Rob.
sticking with.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So, as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is, 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com, or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luka Nation.